This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hey there, Thunder Buddies and Travellers down Thunder Road. It's us, Days of Thunder, the WCW Thunder rewatch podcast that you didn't ask for, but we did anyway, coming to you as part of the Voices of Wrestling podcast network. I'm your host, your troubadour on Thunder Road, Dave Ryan, and I am joined, as I am every week, by my faithful co-host, Stagger Lee Malone. Lee, bit of a cold snap in Ireland the last couple of weeks. How are you dealing with things over there?
I mean, coldly.
Coldly, yeah.
It's not been fun going out and training in the lashings of bitter cold rain, and I work in a freezer all day, so I tend to do okay in the cold, but when you're standing out getting absolutely pissed on, it's not fun.
Yeah. Are you absolutely laughing during the summer then, like during a heat wave? You're just fucking giddy going into work?
Oh no, do you know what? I just like when it's nice, like 10 degrees outside is perfect for me, because if I'm in work and I have to wear a freezer suit...
That's Celsius, by the way, for our
sorry.
American friends.
And I have to wear like a freezer suit or something, and it's just so incredibly warm.
Yeah.
It's just, it's kind of sickening. Like, also there's like tin roofs above our head, and it's like living in a fucking tin, basically.
During cold snaps, my work absolutely sucks as well, because part of our work we do what's called detached work, so like to engage young people that aren't kind of working with us already. Like, we go out to the places in the town and the hinterland that they hang out in and kind of do some like outreach and go, well, here's the programs we do, chat to them, about things that are going on in the area, but like rain, hail or shine, we have to do that. So even though we're going out and it's so cold that they're not out, we still have to go out for 2 hours in that cold, and hope for the best. But yeah, it's... And then our oil ran out this week as well. It was...
Oh God, you're the second person I know of that's had that happen.
Yeah, we've refreshed, we've re-upped now, but there was like 2 days there in between, like when we ran out and when I had the time to ring the oil people on a work day. So that was rough. There was many blankets and hot water bottles being had. But at least it's not fucking snowing. I can't deal with it when it snows here anymore in my old age.
I mean, the whole country can't deal with the snow in Ireland.
Yeah, for those of you who aren't Irish listening to this, we didn't used to get like big snows every winter here. And then 2010, there was like the first big snow since I was a small child, and the entire country ran out of grit for the roads. So everyone was kind of stuck inside. It was like 4 days or something like that, where everyone was basically stuck inside.
Yeah, there was like, if I remember correctly, I didn't go to work for 3 days. I think on the fourth day, it like was starting to thaw.
Yeah, I had to leg it out of... I was living in college at the time, and I had to leg it out of the town my college was in, because they literally shut down the town. Like, they shut down the bus routes and then the train routes. Yeah, because you live quite close to where I went to college, so you would have remembered that. It was grim. But now we get maybe like one heavy snowfall a year, and we're marginally better at dealing with it. I know there's people here who are like living in parts of the States that are probably like buried under a foot of snow half the year. There's somebody in like Minnesota or something that's like, oh, you get one snow a year, poor babies.
Yeah, I think it was like a couple of weeks ago, a couple of the guys in the Slack from like Wisconsin or wherever were talking. We're like, oh yeah, in the past 90 minutes we've got like 6 inches of snow. And like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Or like when my partner, when she lived in the Czech Republic for a year, and it's like that place is basically buried under snow for 6 months. I was like, okay, I lose my right to complain.
And the other 6 months, it's covered in a different kind of snow.
The other 6 months, it's actually like unbearably warm, and there's no breeze whatsoever. It's fucking Jesus. Anyway, we're back. We're here to talk about it. This is our first pay-per-view show as part of the VOW podcast network, so I'm excited to get to that. But we got a couple of bits and pieces to get to. We mentioned on the last episode that after this pay-per-view, we're going to one of our limited run series, and that is Days of Thunder's Thunder Request Live, TRL. Where a few of our listeners who were good enough to chip a few pennies our way last year got to request a special episode, and we are kind of going by the order of the Wheel of Fate to decide which episodes we're going with. So I have our 4 remaining names here on the list, ready to go. And without further ado, Lee, I'll give it a spin and we will announce the Twitter handle of the person whose episode won. And then later on in the week at WCW Thunderpod on Twitter, and we'll probably drop it in our Discord as well, our Discord channel on the VOW Discord, what the winning episode was, because I know it seems, Lee, that we have a decent split amongst our listeners who likes to listen to the podcast, just listen to the podcast and suffer vicariously through us, and then people who actually like to watch the shows in advance of us talking about it. So we'll try to cater to both.
Exactly.
Because we're nothing if not absolute panderers of the highest order.
We're people pleasers. That's what we do here.
So the Wheel of Fate is back out, and I'm going to give her a spin here now, Lee. So here we go. Oh, we have a winner, Lee. And it is, in fact, a friend of the show, long-time caller, long-time fan, at Ty Emil on Twitter, Tim Emil. So he is the winner. We will announce next week on our Twitter account and in the Discord what his requested episode was. But I'm looking forward to... I've actually been digging a bit more than usual the WCW run lately, so it's not like I haven't felt as desperate to take a break from it as I have in times past, but all the same I am looking, we both know what the episode is already, and I'm happy to get to it. I'm happy to dive into whatever this mystery show may be, and I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, it may be something we had often discussed about doing as a special show ourselves, but more on that later. Without further ado, we're just about to get into talking about the pay-per-view, but first, a word from our sponsor. Yes, this episode of Days of Thunder is brought to you by our friends at HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun and affordable. That's why HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. Dave, did you know that HelloFresh offers 50 menu and market items to choose from every week, including veggie, calorie smart, family friendly and gourmet options, providing plenty of variety. Recipes like hibachi sweet soy bavette steak and shrimp bring restaurant quality meals right to your kitchen, while their white cheddar Wonder Burgers make it easier than ever to skip the takeout. Oh, they sound delicious, don't they? They do. White cheddar Wonder Burgers, I'm having that. Lee, as somebody who as documented on the show in the last 6 or 8 months or so, I'm trying to be a bit more calorie conscious. But when you do that, you often kind of run into just doing the same 5 or 6 meals over and over again. Like you are speaking to me there with the amount of variety available. HelloFresh offers the flexibility you need to easily customize your order online or in the app, easily change your delivery day, food preferences and plan size, or skip a week whenever you need to. Dave, when you are in the kitchen trying to prepare stuff and, make stuff for yourself, your wonderful partner, and of course the dog. Of course. Toby. Time can be of the essence. You've just got in from work, you have to record a podcast.
There might be a match on.
There might be. I'm a man who's in demand, Lee. I don't get in till nearly 9 p.m. sometimes, and I would be tempted to get the takeaway some nights when I'm in late.
So you know how easy HelloFresh makes it.
So, like, any service that's going to offer me the chance to still have a substantial meal, but also cut some corners.
Oh yeah,
that appeals to me on a personal level.
Exactly. So if you go to hellofresh.com/VOW16 and use code VOW16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That's hellofresh.com/VOW16 and the code is VOW16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That is unbeatable, Dave.
Yeah. And thank you once again to our continuing sponsors at HelloFresh. We really appreciate it, and it's one of those services, Lee, where were we Americans ourselves, it would be something that I think we would have been signed up from the very beginning.
Absolutely.
With them. So yeah, check them out. Get on board. It's a good opportunity. Please, actually, if anybody does use the code and get them, let me know what the white cheddar Wonder Burgers are like, because that shit sounds insane.
Also, tell them Days of Thunder sent you.
Absolutely, tell them Days of Thunder sent you. Don't give that credit to Joe and Rich.
Right. Are we ready for
Lee,
some WCW?
Let's do it. The sponsors are ticked off the list, and it is time to get to World Championship Wrestling. This is SuperBrawl IX. It's funny that we're recording this. We're recording our SuperBrawl episode the night that the Super Bowl happens, and also, as we noticed, we are like mere days away from the 23rd anniversary of this show happening. It's weird, like it's a rare occasion where the calendars sync up in that sort of way for us because of how slow we need to take it. Yeah,
it's very strange that we get this kind of situation. So, yeah, it's a nice little almost anniversary, I suppose we could call it.
Yeah. So, Lee, on this night, the 21st of February 1999 in Oakland, California, we get our cold open to the pay-per-view. With the woman we know as Tori Wilson getting her tickets to come to the World Championship Wrestling. Now, Tony alludes later on to the fact that not only had we seen these exact same video packages repeated on Thunder the last 2 weeks, but they had also been repeating on Nitro the last couple of weeks. So, you know, I suppose we were moaning on the Go Home Thunder about repeating like the At Home with the Ravens thing over and over again, but it sounds like they were really beating these Tory vignettes into the ground.
Yeah, I get the impression they spent all of one day doing all these vignettes thinking, this will get us through to the next pay-per-view, and they didn't.
Yeah. And really, when I reflect on it, I think the goal of this vignette, with how things played out, the goal of the vignettes is supposed to build tension to who the mystery man is that's coming to the show with Tori. But I don't know about you, like, she was the star of the segments. Yeah. Like, she's the on-camera person, and it felt like it was building to her having a significant involvement, and she doesn't really, as we will get to later.
Yeah, like, there was no other way to read it, because at no point did the commentator say, well, who's the guy holding the camera? Yeah.
Like, that's what you know, I know there is a level at which you'd be laying it on too thick, but yeah, there should have been kind of a, let's remember, it's not about the girl, it's about who's she talking to. You know, you should build the intrigue and kind of guide the viewer that is what the central angle is.
Like, they never acknowledge that, you know, she mentions Scott Hall and the taser and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of just like, well, you know, maybe it's a little bit of, you know, being used to WWE, like laying it on so thick and being so obvious. Yeah. And maybe it is supposed to be like, well, you're intelligent enough to understand who Scott is and the taser and stuff like that. So maybe we should give them credit for not being so super obvious about things.
Maybe. We then have like the kind of pre-show video package, which features just a lot of men spinning around in the dark.
Yeah, very weird. Why was Dusty
very weird? That's the thing, is like most of the men you see are people who have been recently in the world title picture. You know, like Goldberg, Nash, Hogan,
DDP.
DDP.
DDP. Luger, sorry.
Luger, yeah, sorry. But then, yeah, just randomly Dusty Rhodes. And I was like, oh, Dusty must be on this show. He wasn't.
No, he just wasn't.
Yeah. Just bizarre. Maybe he was just free that day and thought it'd look fun to go on whatever thing they had spinning them around.
The spinning turntable, yeah.
Give me a go, baby. I will say, like, once it got past the spinny in the dark bit, I thought it was a cool little package.
Nice little opening, yeah.
Like, something I think they got across real well on this show, and I suppose, like, a sneak preview of my overall thoughts. Like, I'm not going to say this was a killer pay-per-view, but I think they did a reasonable job for the most part making this feel like a lot of the pay-per-view was a big deal. Like, I know Tony has a line in the middle of it going about how, like, pretty much everybody who's facing everybody on this show has bad blood. And you evidenced this by the fact that you were able to remember all the matches that took place on this show for the first time. So I think we got to give them their props.
Yeah, I think we said it on the Go Home show. Like, they've done a really good job this month, and I'd want to say the couple of weeks before sold out as well, kind of building to the show. Yeah, like, not every match is a winner.
No.
But, yeah, you kind of have to give them the props. Like, people shit all over WCW in 1999, rightly so, for a lot of reasons. But when you can compare this to, again, modern day WWE, I'd take this every day of the week.
Yeah, for sure. So we got our pyro and ballyhoo, and Tony welcomes us to the show. He says that Ric Flair has the thoughts and the hopes of all of World Championship Wrestling resting on his shoulders tonight as he takes on Hogan. We get tag titles in a glass case at the top of the ramp as we dissolve into Heenan and Tenay, who join Tony on comms.
Titles in glass cases always look cool. I don't know, like, maybe that's just a me thing, but I think when they're all presented like that,
it makes it feel legit.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, you and I have decried the treatment of these championships so much for the last year that just to see them front and center at the top of the pay-per-view is pretty damn refreshing.
Yeah, brand new belts, and they're building it up. They like, look, we've shit all over the tournament because not many of the teams are actual teams, and it's kind of a little bit haphazard the way it was booked. But at the end of the day, they got to the right pay-per-view match, and they've made it feel like a big deal.
For sure. They really do a good job here. The kind of like the hard push on the commentary about what a significant night this is. Not only because of the aforementioned tag title stuff, but they lay out this World Championship main event, Flair versus Hogan, and they're saying that, like, look, these are the two biggest stars of the last 15 years, and on top of that kind of like who's the greatest of all time rivalry, now it's become distinctly personal since the events of the last month or two. So now you're kind of just like, you don't just want to see who's going to be the better man on the night, but you want to see Flair rip this fucker limb from limb as well. So it's, again, part of a really strong build. They do straight away, again, a refreshing thing for WCW. They basically do a full tournament recap, which I thought was excellent stuff.
Really good.
The one thing that I do think is funny about it, though, is in a very World Championship Wrestling sort of manner, they do point out that over the course of this tournament, 3 of the tag teams in the tournament broke up.
That's because they were thrown together.
One because of circumstance, with Van Hammer being beaten to death at a car park, but the other 2, being thrown to, like, and Van Hammer was in a team
with Rat.
With Rat, the Craps of Rat, as we'll recall, and then we had 2 other teams.
The Faces of Fear, I suppose, was just Jimmy Hart being a dickhead.
Faces of Fear broke up, and then Kidman and Chavo as well.
Kidman and Chavo, who was instigated by Mean Gene.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Mean Gene split them up. Mean Gene turned Chavo heel.
It was a quiet day on the hotline, so you had to get some kind of news.
Yeah. My favorite part of the video package is, though, something they didn't really stress as much on TV, is that these 2 teams we've got in the final, who are Kurt Hennig and Barry Windham, and
the Horseman.
the Horseman, Benoit and Malenko. They really put over that, like, these 2 have a bitter history between one another, like going all the way back to Hennig turning on the Horseman, but also even within the tournament. So Hennig and Windham are unbeaten. Malenko and Benoit lost once, and it was to their opponents in this final tonight. And and it sets the stage the way the wins and losses. Again, I just stunned that, like, we were laughing at this double elimination style, but the way they've set it up in the final is that now
It matters that they lost.
the heels only have to, it matters that they lost, and the heels only have to win. If they beat them again, that's it. But if the baby faces win, they have to beat them twice.
Yeah, they have to win again, yeah.
So, like, really stacked against the baby faces, it all makes sense. I'm just, like, I'm sitting here absolutely rocked to the core by how much sense this all makes. When, again, you know, in the micro, week to week, the tournament looked like shit.
Yeah.
But what it was they had a very sensible conclusion to the tournament, and they reverse engineered in a way that was fairly hot and cold
they
from it.
just didn't work backwards quite well enough.
Yeah. So then we get me and Gene. He's posing with the belt, and of course Lee. He's plugging the hotline.
Oh, that's the...
Yeah. Now, he didn't do the thing he desperately does a lot of months where he goes, "Oh, you won't believe some of the people I've seen backstage tonight."
No, instead he was talking about business aspects.
Yeah, business aspects. He's got some flowcharts.
I was just going to say,
want to hear all about it.
Mean Gene was the 1999 Brandon Thurston Howard. Breaking down the quarters, the minute by minutes.
God bless. Our opening contest, something else I liked about this show, Lee, is it was fairly no nonsense with the match. I know they do less of the backstage segments at the pay-per-view, which we always like, but it felt like I think the pace of the show was actually excellent. There was a couple of matches where I think within the bell-to-bell of the match, the pace kind of slowed down in a way I didn't like, and I kind of got bored of a couple of matches, which we'll talk about. But in terms of, we're just having this wall-to-wall matches that you care about, I think they did a really good job.
Look, the way this card was structured, I think was put together as well as you could. The order of the matches and stuff, I thought it was very well done.
Certainly as well as they could.
Yeah. Like, considering some of the matches that were on the show, yeah, I think they did a very good job.
Yeah. Well, let's just get into it then with our opening contest, which is Disco Inferno versus Booker T. I'll tell you what, I'll give my props to Disco Inferno straight away. I was roaring laughing that his Wolfpack theme music is just the Disco Inferno song with the Wolfpack howl every 5 to 10 seconds. Yeah. Like, the first couple of times I thought he was doing the awoo down the camera because it was so out of place. But it was really good. I liked it.
Not like some disco fever with a wolf howl.
And there were some outrageously white people in the crowd boogieing to the disco song. It was like they picked the two biggest dorks they could find in the building, one adult and one kid. It was, oh Lord. I couldn't get over, by the way, as well. Like, you know, I give my props where I can. Disco is over. People are invested in him, both like the people who hate him, like cheering Disco sucks, but also multiple disco signs in the crowd during his entrance here.
Yeah, that was going to be my big kind of talking point here, is this is really the start of them trying with Disco. Like, they're actually trying, in the sense that he's been treated as a serious competitor. Like, he's in there with Booker T. Booker T is he's a protected guy on the roster in a lot of senses.
Again, there are various points since we started doing this show where, like, say in the middle of his Dancing Fools run, like if you had a Disco versus Booker singles match, you would expect this to be like a 3-minute squash.
But like, again, like, it goes back to since basically the midpoint of 1998, we've had the Bobby Heenan thing of, if he just keeps his head down, if he concentrates, he's a guy. Yeah. And now that he's in the Wolfpack, I think they are really kind of saying, right, this is your moment. Like, show us what you have.
Do you think that they just like finally decided to try with him before Bobby Heenan had an aneurysm, just begging them to just do something with this guy?
I wonder, was it a kind of thing of Heenan kind of almost forcing it on them in the way that he put him over so much?
Yeah.
But obviously, like, as we know, like, Disco knew who to gravitate towards. He knew who to please, who to stay on side with. Disco is a very political guy.
He may not have been a great worker, but he was a great worker, if you know what I mean. let's just say this as well. Big reaction for Booker T coming out. And look, we say it month in, month out. I feel like a broken record, but this dude looked like $1,000,000 coming out here.
God. It just, again, it's one of the things that we've talked about since the very beginning. This guy was ready in 98. He's ready in 99. They just waited,
and it would still be so long.
They waited so long and put him in so much dog shit stories.
Could you imagine if they have this guy like go over Hogan clean for the belt?
Well, I mean, they would never have had that because...
No, but like hypothetically, in a world where Hogan wasn't Hogan, but could you imagine how, like, what a big, like, that's... I'm not saying that's on the level of Goldberg in the Georgia Dome, but you're also not a million miles off in terms of, like, if you have him go over Hogan clean, you've created the next guy for them.
Look, this was going to be one of my big talking points by the time we got to the main event, but you look at the main event... Sorry, two of the three main events, because I feel like Hall, Piper, Goldberg, Bam Bam, and Flair, Hogan had three big matches on the show, yeah?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So
I'd almost put Steiner and DDP as a fourth, like, or a 3.5 main event.
But, I mean, you look at Roddy Piper, Ric Flair, and Hulk Hogan, and you look at the shape they're in, and then you look at guys like Booker T, Scott Hall, Scott Steiner. Like, yeah, they might be 10, 12 years younger, but I mean, those guys are fucking, like, unbelievable.
They're ready.
Shape.
And ready. And, you know, again, like, you talk about, like, of Piper, Flair, and Hogan, the one that's the problem is Hogan, because I don't for a second in my mind think that Piper and Flair would have a problem losing to the right guy. Like, they're guys who will, if it's like if everyone's going to make some more money, Flair or Piper will lay on the mat. You know what I mean?
Look, we've seen Flair try with a lot of people. I think if the environment was a bit more positive, a bit more less toxic, there's no reason to believe that Ric Flair wouldn't have put over a ton of people to main event status in WCW.
Yeah.
Whereas with Hogan there, it was just constantly trying to protect their spot.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of mentality is contagious, unfortunately. So, Disco as well, the gear has changed. So he's got his Wolfpack coloured flares, which is a nice touch. Quick exchange, finishing with a Booker T hip toss and Disco Sucks chants, which were very loud throughout. Disco hits, as you know, Lee, one of my favourite underrated moves in wrestling, the running spinning neck breaker. I've always said, you know, much as I slag him off as to how little I'm into Disco as a concept, I do think his spinning neck breaker is fantastic.
It's so fantastic that it gets the crowd to their feet.
Yeah, it's second only to, I think the best one on the roster is Canyon. That will come as a surprise to nobody, but his is pretty damn good as well. The crowd, this is something I noticed as well. The crowd tonight in Oakland are great.
Yeah, they really are. Like, one thing I noticed in this match, like, you notice early on, there is a fucking ton of NWO Wolfpack shirts in the crowd. And yet, and it's a credit to him, Disco still gets booed the fuck out of the building.
Yeah. Yeah, and here's the other thing that I was thinking. Do you think, like we talked about it, you know, they waited so long, inarguably, I would say, too long on Booker, that by the time they finally went with him, it didn't matter anymore. The decline was irreversible in the company as a whole. Do you think part of them waiting so long is because Booker is just a fantastic guy to put out in the first 2 or 3 matches of a card to just, like, absolutely electrify a crowd? Like, I don't think I can recall a single match he's ever had on our run that the crowd haven't been super into.
Yeah, maybe there's an argument that they thought they didn't have... He wasn't that guy, but they thought he was that guy for that slot. And they were just like, the dude is so over as this guy that let's not elevate him. Like, that's possible, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I definitely don't think that's the whole of it, but I do think there's a certain guys who are just excellent in a certain role. There might be a reticence to move them out of that role because they're like, we don't have anyone as good as a Booker in that slot coming in behind him, and that is their problem entirely. That's not a Booker problem.
Yeah, that's something they should have been building towards again.
Booker is doing his job. Booker is being put in a slot and is being one of, if not the best in the company at being in that slot. And all his stuff looks great. Again, like, I'm looking at this guy and he's not doing a thing where, you know, some guys go up and they're in the opening match and they're like, I'm going to steal the show and blow up everyone's spot. He's not doing that. But at the same time, I'm looking at this guy and like, this guy is wrestling like a main event heavyweight at the same time.
Do you know what it is? It's Booker doesn't get a ton of offense in his matches, but the offense he does is so high impact, so crowd pleasing that everything feels like a big deal. Like,
and like, everybody knows all his moves.
Yeah, that's literally what I was about to say. All his moves are over.
Yeah. And that is to his credit as well. There are a couple of moments of miscommunication here where I think Disco's like footwork or placement in the ring is a little bit off and it makes things a bit awkward. There's one bit where he isn't where he's supposed to, he doesn't bump where he's supposed to, and Booker in the process of doing his next move kind of stumbles over him. They get over that though, thankfully. Big chops in the corner from Booker. He does a whip and a bit like a lovely corner clothesline, like proper, like right into the corner camera. Looks devastating, really good.
Again, I always credit them for it, but the camera work on on this pay-per-view in particular, just some great moments.
So Disco then, Booker misses a Harlem sidekick. Disco clotheslines Booker over the top to take advantage, rams Booker headfirst into the steps and into the railing. Booker fights back with a combo when they get in the ring, does the hook kick, does the axe kick, which is funny because it's such a transitional spot for him that like it's because we know it as his finish. That like the axe kick is a middle of the match move for him here, but it is also so over.
Yeah, like somebody needed to be pulling him aside at this point and saying, "Dude, that's your move."
I never read, because he has a book, doesn't he?
I haven't read it if he does.
Yeah, so I don't know too much about like his thinking about his moves and when and why he decided the axe kick was going to become his big move, but like, I got to imagine it has something to do with the fact he probably got into his 30s and somebody was saying to him look, mate, you may want to chill out with the Harlem hangover because that's going to fuck your hip up.
Yeah, I mean, and as impressive as it is, what is he, 6'3", like a legit 6'3" dude. Yeah, he doesn't need to be doing a missile dropkick every night.
Yeah, and the other thing as well about the Harlem hangover is that it's that kind of thing like Shawn with his super kick where there's only two settings. It's either you miss by 3 feet or you are hitting him straight in the face. Yeah,
exactly. But, you know, the other thing, and it's the underrated thing, and it's the thing that all WWE superstars are told, you need to be able to hit your move on everybody, whether it's Spike Dudley or the Big Show. And the axe kick is that move.
Axe kick is absolutely that move. Disco rebounds and hits an atomic drop. He goes for a Brett's rope axe handle, gets reversed into a 110th Street slam, which gets repeatedly referred to as a sidewalk slam, to my irritation.
They'll get it right one day.
What's funny is after the match, Tony gives out to Heenan for not knowing the name of moves, and it's like, Tony, motherfucker, like, you're the one that kept saying sidewalk slam here. Disco attempts a chartbuster, it gets reversed. Booker hits the spinneroonie, also massively over. Harlem sidekick, massive pop. And as soon as, again, this is how you know that like a finisher is super over. As soon as he goes to climb the ropes for the first hangover attempt, the crowd is up.
Yeah.
You know? The other thing I meant to say about Booker's being over is during his entrance, I noticed a lot of crowd movement, and I was like, what the hell? And it's that like a good, like, half the crowd are doing the raise the roof for Booker. Yeah. Like, yeah. And I didn't think that was that over that early in his run, but here we are.
Do you know what? It's such a simple thing that, you know, young wrestlers really need to think about is fans love shit they can do along with you.
Yeah. So, people overthink like their unique poses and things like that, and do like do really intricate hand gestures and things like that now, which in and of themselves can sometimes look cool, but you want something that looks cool but is also, as you say, easily replicable. The thing I think of that's like, it's not that intricate but is easily replicable is the Motor City Machine Guns pose, the hand points. Yeah. like that's something that like it's a bit more to it than your average just raise one hand in the air, but also it's something that loads of fans can do. I also noticed it because this is like we're recording this the week after Keith Lee showed up in AEW, and I think about how like everybody knows when he hits his it's almost reminiscent of The Rock smelling the electricity in the air. That like when he does that, or when he does the orchestra conductor, that everybody knows to do the Bask in his glory chant. And it's that like it's that connection with the crowd that is so hard for some people to find.
Dude, seeing as you brought it up, obviously I very rarely get to watch Dynamite live these days. So, I come home from work on a Thursday and I tend to watch it with Connor. So, as we're watching the show, Jay White shows up in the segment right before.
Yeah.
And Connor thought, oh, that's the big debut. And of course, Keith Lee comes out, and when I say his jaw hit the floor, he was like, oh, my God. And,
it was so good, the bait and switch, that you're like, okay, yeah, like it's cool Jay White's here, but that's the surprise and that's it.
But yeah, like for a 9-year-old that's not going to think of that. It's just like, and as Keith Lee's doing that, he's doing it along with him because, of course, he's been to the ringside and seen Keith Lee in person.
AEW did two great bait and switches on that show. One, they did that, and then two, they did the thing with Punk's mystery partner, where conveniently right as the show went to air, the word got out that Ace Steel was backstage.
Oh, did it? I didn't know that.
PW Insider ran with a report, and everyone was like everybody who was like in Discords or anything like that were like, oh, it's probably Ace Steel, and obviously, like in my head, obviously anyway, like I think periodically they'll do this. Somebody is going to reunite with Punk, or somebody's going to come to help Punk, and everybody's going to keep thinking it's Colt until one day, hopefully, it will be Colt.
I was just going to bring that up, dude. The day I really hope, I genuinely do. I hope those two are on good terms, and they're just not mentioning each other to build up to that moment.
I have said that regardless of whether they actually are or they aren't, I think both of them are smart enough that if they did bury the hatchet, they're not going to tell anybody. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That they're going to work it until...
Because they don't... They refuse to acknowledge each other, don't they? Like, they haven't...
There was one thing Punk said when he was on commentary during a Dark Order match that people construed as him talking about Colt. But otherwise, they have had no interactions. Punk was doing a commentary on a match that Colt was in, but didn't actually talk about him at all. So yeah, but look, we can stick our tinfoil hats on all we like.
I mean, look at the company they're in. This is the company that thinks about everything, so...
Yeah. But it was... my point was, like, it was a great bait and switch because people thought Ace Steel, and then Mox comes out, and it's like, it made perfect sense, and just seeing those two dudes on the same tag team was fucking awesome.
And hey, CM Punk, John Moxley, and Bryan Danielson are in the same fucking storyline.
We're fucking blessed, like, do you know what I mean?
And Daniel Garcia and Lee Moriarty just to throw things in,
Yeah. And, like, the tease of Danielson starting the stable that I saw our good friend Chris Damasceno dub as Dragon Goon.
Yeah, Dragon Goon, yeah.
Yeah, I'd have that all day. But anyway, look, let's go back to this match, which was very enjoyable. Like, normally we segue away from matches that are boring, but, like, I want to stress that I was really into this match. So yeah, he goes for the hangover. Disco goes up to crotch him, but Booker successfully fights him off. Absolutely fucking annihilates him with a Harlem hangover and wins.
Dude, he lands on his temple.
Yeah. I thought, and he does. What's really good is, well, one, Disco is able to, like, he rotates his head away, so, like, it just gets him on the side of the head instead of getting him on the bridge of the nose, so that was smart. And he perfectly timed a spit take as well when he got caught.
Oh, I didn't notice that, okay.
Yeah, it proper looked like it killed him stone dead, so that was really good. I thought this was, as we've kind of said already, just a stellar opener for a pay-per-view.
A really enjoyable opener with two hot acts.
Yeah.
I mean, not much more you can ask for.
Next up there's kind of like a couple of matches on this show that I thought were kind of sort of missteps, and I thought this was kind of one of them. We've Perry Saturn and his dress versus Chris Jericho with Ralphus. I did appreciate us like literally just barreling straight into the second match. We barely had enough time to digest the replay from the first one. It's like, boom, here's some more action for you. So that I really enjoyed. The crooked ref is back. He accompanies Jericho and Ralphus, who is still wearing the exact same Sunday dress from Thunder, so that must smell ripe at this stage. Jericho is in an amazing top as well.
I want to believe that Ralphus was putting the ring together while wearing that outfit.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Every time Saturn comes out, like lately, I keep forgetting they're doing the dress bit. And he has added the eyeliner to the look as well. It's so disappointing that they're still doing this angle. I'm just not into it at all. Jericho's on the mic. He says Saturn looks ridiculous. He keeps burying him. He apologizes to the Jerichoholics for having to look at this disgrace of a man. Calls Saturn cross-eyed. Jibes him a few more times. Saturn snaps and we're off to the races.
Yeah, Chris Jericho might be cancelled after that promo.
Yeah. I do you know what I liked? I like the start of this match where like it starts off with a lot of intensity and physicality. So like Saturn snaps and he's just decking Jericho. Jericho is trying to like run away. Saturn grabs a hold of him outside the ring, whips him so hard he bumps over the railing, and then he follows him with a diving axe handle off the railing. It's kind of scrappy. They're not really on the same page, but I think for something where like there's a lot of anger and a lot of resentment, I think that can work sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, with these two guys, I kind of expect better, but I know what you're talking about where, you know, there is that kind of, as they've said on commentary, it's that personal animosity, like all Jericho's done to Saturn. But yeah, I was kind of mostly disappointed with this match, all in all.
There are individual moments where I think things are working. Like there's a bit where they're just standing toe to toe and throwing bombs at each other, and there's one bit where like Saturn kind of turns away, like almost winces in pain, and Jericho responds by cracking off a chop across like in between his shoulder blades, which I like. I always think that stuff looks cool. Like, you know, periodically when Walter will chop somebody, or sorry, Gunther will chop somebody in the back or the neck or the head, and you're just like, it's just so much more brutal when it's not across the chest.
Yeah, it's that thing of, you know, where you attempts it and they duck and
I like the bit where Saturn tries to throw Jericho off his game and goes for the Lion Tamer, and this causes Jericho to get frustrated and bail out of the ring. Saturn then goes for Ralphus, and in a sight none of us needed to see, strips him down to, I think, the largest pair of blue boxers I've ever seen in my life. You could house a family of 4 in those boxers. Like, I'm not saying, like, I'm not slagging the size of Ralphus, but I'm saying, like, even for Ralphus's frame, they were fucking enormous.
It's funny, he probably ate a meal for 4 that day.
They were nearly 3/4 lengths even on him. That's how big they were. So like, I don't know where the fuck they got these. I think
they were just trying to make sure nothing spilled out.
Yeah, they're just like, we cannot risk this. Like the what's the Parents Television Council are going to be absolutely
PTC, wasn't it?
Yeah, the PTC. So he gets stripped. Jericho sneak attacks Saturn while he's distracted by Ralphus's boxers. I love this bit. So Jericho goes to do his "Come On Baby" pin,
and as bring it up,
as he does it and does the flex, basically Saturn gets ankle control, rolls him over, and just starts
grabbing him, throttles him.
Yeah, grabs him by the back of the hair and just starts smashing his head into the mat. That looked brutal.
Do you know what? It's such a small little thing, but it's so good because Jericho does it in every match. He does the pin, and eventually somebody just picks his ankle and is like, "Yeah, you fucking dickhead."
Yeah. I wonder, I'd like to go back because I can't remember offhand, did he ever have a match with Kurt where he tried that and nearly got caught by an ankle lock? Because that seems like that seems like a spot that's too good not to do. There's a line here from Brain where he says, how can you not turn your attention to Ralphus? What a looker. I did laugh at that line, but did you notice that, like, until maybe the main event, Heenan was having an off night, I thought.
Yeah, he wasn't great tonight.
No, it felt like a night where I don't know if he wasn't well or he just wasn't feeling WCW at that particular time.
I will say it was a show, all in all, that I didn't really get much from the commentators in the sense of too many zingers or, you know, great lines or anything. So I tended kind of not to notice them, and that's not always a good thing either.
Yeah, and it wasn't like I would not say by any stretch of the imagination this was a bad show. Do you know what I mean? I think like as a whole pay-per-view product, like I don't think there's anything troubling notebook level star-wise, but I think this was like a fairly consistently decent. There was no absolute bombs on this show.
Considering some of the dross we had to put up with in '98, like I can't understand why the commentators wouldn't be a bit more jazzed for a pay-per-view that had 9 matches that were built to.
And as Tony kind of pointed out with all the feuds going on, there actually is a lot to talk about each match without going off point. Like, every match has a story behind it on this.
It's not like, you know, in past shows where you'd have Finlay in the ring and they'd just be going, oh, the NWO main event, oh, the NWO... Like...
Yeah. No, there's plenty of food for thought in this. And I do think Tony and Tenay are at least trying, but Heenan just feels like he's just having an off night. But anyway... So, big splash. Oh, sorry, yeah. Jericho goes for a spinning thing off the top rope and absolutely eats shit. Big splash from Saturn. He calls for the Death Valley Driver, which gets people nice and animated. But he gets nearly rolled up with Jericho's foot on the ropes. I feel like maybe there was a lot of roll-up foot on the ropes in this, and one of them played into a finish. So I feel like some agenting was not up to speed on this show. But anyway, Saturn puts Jericho's head in the dress for the 10-punch spot. Heenan again did have one of his rare zingers on this where he goes, he looks breached. That happened, which is just like super gross, but like super Heenan at the same time. So they're going for the big high impact moves, reversal. Jericho hits a fairly good looking release German suplex. He gets cut off up top, pushes Saturn off, hits a crossbody. Saturn rolls through. He gets the rings of Saturn in. Jericho, showing his ring awareness, is able to pivot around and get his foot on the ropes. I thought that rings of Saturn rope break thing was really good.
Yeah, it was really good. I was expecting to be a tap-out finish there.
Yeah. Falcon Arrow from Saturn, who then goes for... and I like this as well, like playing into he's trying to knock Jericho off his game by taking from his wheelhouse. He tried the walls earlier in the show, and now he goes for a lion salt. He misses this time because Jericho... I think has figured out that he's trying to do his moves, so Jericho has it scouted, gets out of the way. Jericho then responds by hitting his lion salt for a 2 count. Death Valley Driver attempt, Jericho wiggles out, but Saturn gets him up again, doesn't pin him. He just stands there, and the guys are going, oh, this is going to cost him for not going to the cover. And then he turns around to the crooked ref, hits a Death Valley Driver on him, and Saturn leaves. And Jericho gets awarded the count-out victory. Or, well, it's the DQ victory.
Well, I mean, it should be... No, the announcer does say count-out victory.
Okay.
Yeah, so, as far as I remember, the story goes that Saturn rather enjoys wearing the dress.
Yeah.
And that's what it becomes. It's like...
that's the thing.
He embraces the... You know, everyone calling him a freak or whatever it is. Because, I don't know if you noticed, when he's walking out, he shouts down the camera what becomes his phrase of, what are you looking at? Yeah. He also shouts as he's on the way back up the ramp, life's a drag. Yeah.
I thought it was a dumb finish in isolation because, as you said, like, even though it goes into he doesn't want to be out of it, like, logic would dictate, like, you're more than able to Death Valley Driver the referee either earlier in the match and not waste our time, or after the bell when you've conclusively won.
Yeah. Look, it is a dumb finish, but you know, Saturn kind of looks strong. Jericho's on his way out of the company in the next couple of months anyway. Who cares?
Yeah. Next up, we go to the internet location fairly briefly. Conan and Ray look absolutely miserable here.
Oh yeah, they know what the finish is.
I suspect they have just been told what the finish is.
I would say that they've been trying for the last couple of days to, you know, get them to see reason and logic, and
either they've just been told or they thought they could politic their way out of losing the mask, which they should have been able to do.
I'd say fairness. Conan had promised that he wouldn't lose the mask, and then he's just after being told no, he's losing the mask, and it's those dudes are not happy.
That said, I do think they do a good job out here. I think the two cuts to the internet location are actually pretty good interviews on this show. So Conan says that the lads later on, they have weak hearts and weak heads, and tonight Liz says hello to the barber. We get a blink and you'll miss it catch up of the Steiner and Page feud.
It's the same recap we saw on Thunder.
Yeah. And then straight into the Cruiserweight title match, Kidman versus Chavo Guerrero.
But before you go through the play-by-play of this one, I mean, Chavo's the weakest challenger we've had so far, isn't he?
I think this is the worst master on the show.
Yeah,
by far. I think this completely bored the shit out of me.
Yeah, that was I was going to say. Like, I was completely bored.
Yeah, and of course, like, I wouldn't blame Kidman at all. Like, there's one consistent person in a lot of these cruiserweight matches that turn out boring, and it's Chavo.
Yeah, like the whole roster they have, and they decided to give Chavo the title match as a heel.
Now, we were talking in the in our Discord channel to some of the listeners about, you asked them what they thought about Chavo. And, people were kind of like, no one was robustly defending him, but I feel like a bunch of people were like, he's okay. And I think a lot of people remember that Los Guerreros run very fondly. And, as I kind of posited in there, I think, like, it's not hard to look at least semi-entertaining when you're doing tag team matches during the SmackDown 6 era and your partner is Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah, like when you're next to probably the most charismatic man in the business, like.
Yeah. I have always thought that Chavo was quite dull, and it took him being in the ring with a special talent to get something I was interested in out of him. Maybe that's my personal taste. And I think the worst thing about him in WCW is that not only does he still have that boring streak for me, but also he's much greener. So when things don't go well, or when he's forced to be a little bit creative, he doesn't do anything that sparks any more interest.
And, like, by all accounts, he's a nice guy, and a lot of people like him.
Except Alan Farrell.
Does Alan have beef with Chavo?
Alan hates him. Alan, it's like his new Bobby Roode thing. Alan and the hating Bobby Roode. It's like Chavo's the latest one where, like, when Chavo showed up on AEW, I just saw, like, a tweet out of Alan, like, oh, for fuck's sake. Basically.
It's so random.
I love Alan Farrell is like 99% of the time the most positive guy about wrestling. Like, doesn't waste his time talking about shit he doesn't like. But there's periodically, like, one dude who will fuck him off in a massive way, and Chavo is one of them.
I mean, the next time I'm talking to Alan, I'm gonna have to bring this up. But yeah, look, I mean, it's just such a bad title match. Like, it really is just. And it drags Kidman down, in my estimation. Yeah.
It's like, again, the only two spots I wrote down for this whole match. Like, I like to try go through play-by-play of the big things that happen in the match. The only things I wrote 3 points. Two of them were spots. So I wrote, match isn't up to much. Chavo hits a crazy tope, and Kidman wins with the shooting star press. I think the tope Chavo hit was really good.
Yeah, it looked okay, yeah.
Looked really good. And yeah, shooting star press for the win. The other stuff I have in here is just that, like, the most notable thing that happens during the match is Tony talking about how after he was attacked on Thunder, we saw him getting his arm kicked into a door. Lex Luger will not be competing tonight, but Nash has found a partner. Yeah, just bored the shit out of me, this match. I really don't want to waste any more time on it, unless you have anything to add.
No.
Okay, so we get a replay of the Goldberg Bam Bam video package that we saw on Thunder, and then we're straight into the one, potentially two tag team title tournament final matches. Barry Windham and Kurt Hennig versus the Four Horsemen, Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko. At long lastly, we have reached the final of this tournament. I feel like we've been talking about this for half the run of the podcast, because they did a tournament once, it got fucked up, they started it again, and now we're at the final. So it's definitely been a good 3 to 4 months of TV that they've been talking about tag title tournaments for.
I mean, I can't wait for in 3 weeks where Barry Windham and Kurt Hennig have a match to decide who is the tag team champions, because that's all that seemed to be happening the last time with any of the tag team champions since early 98.
Yeah. I will say, I think they're the two right teams for the final, in terms of, like, they're the best babyface tag team versus the most logical heel tag team to put up against them for the chase.
Do you know, there's something, and it kind of stood out to me. It's like Windham and Hayden come out and, they make their entrance to heels, and, it's cool. But then the Horseman music plays, And Benoit and Malenko, there's no theatrics. There's no. Like, they don't pose. They don't do any sign. Like, I was saying earlier on about, young wrestlers really need to, work on just something simple for the fans to play with. No. These two guys, they never take their eyes off the ring.
They're wrestlers.
And they come out and they get a huge pop. And the fans are so into the Horsemen. Like, these two are fucking over as a tag team.
And you know what else? We saw a clip of them earlier on in the show where they're backstage and they say, in no uncertain terms, that they're over all this fucking about with tag team wrestling in WCW, and they're going to restore honor and glory to the tag team division. And God, if willing would make it so, Lee. What I loved about this, leaning into storylines from the last year plus, is that so the first minute or so, Wyndham is in the ring and it's kind of slow, feeling each other out. But as soon as Hennig gets tagged in and he's in there with Benoit is like, fuck this guy. And it just gets so stiff and so physical. He's like, you could tell he's just been dying to get his hands on this little bollocks.
Do you know what? When Hennig and Benoit get in there and like they're exchanging chops, and Hennig is fucking flying around the place for Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
And the comparison I will make is the SummerSlam 91 match, where Kurt Hennig didn't have to do this. He didn't have to go in and fly around like this for Chris Benoit.
Especially at this stage of his career where he's definitely already lost a step. And, you could say, of all the guys who are coming in to essentially just like on the WCW pension plan, he's one of the guys who you don't begrudge at him as much because he's not taking up the main event doing it. Do you know what I mean?
He knew his spot.
Yeah. And he has been more than willing to look like a tit and get laid out by guys in the past. And again, like you said, even though he's lost a step in terms of having high quality matches, he's still a guy that when the occasion presents itself will bump around like a fucking crazy person and sell for them. And that's what he does here. I love, not only does that play into the storyline with the bad blood between Hennig and the Horseman, but also you've got this kind of how would I describe it, urgency on the Horseman, because the Horseman realize like we need to get this first fall done quick, because if we're going to win this we have to wrestle 2 matches. So when Hennig and Wyndham are in control of this match, they're trying to slow it down and tire them out because they know we only need to win 1, and even if they win the first one, they're going to be blown up from trying to.
Yeah.
So I think even though I kind of like attention wise, I kind of like wasn't feeling it as much when the heels were in charge, but that is a deliberate thing. And like in terms of logic, it makes absolute sense to me. It's not like, again, we invoke his name, but like a Fit Finlay match where for no reason at all, we come out, there's like 2 chops and he immediately takes a rest hold. It absolutely makes sense why they're doing this. Like whether I'm necessarily into the moment of it or not, that's a different kettle of fish. But I do think though, the crowd definitely understands and remembers what's going on between Hennig and the Horseman, but they're absolutely not feeling Barry Windham. No,
and I mean, kind of Windham came back out of nowhere, like they joined the MWO. I think it was the end of 98, wasn't it? Was he turned on Flair or something? So it's like
he just came back on a Nitro. Because they mentioned it offhand on the Thunder. We didn't even know he was back.
But like, I mean, overall, I really fucking like this. I mean, it was slow and I had moments where it just wasn't great. But maybe it's just my investment in Malenko and Benoit.
Yeah. But I think maybe that just comes from, like, maybe at this stage in the card, I was hoping for something to maintain the intensity that the Horsemen were doing when they were in control. But as even I can concede the fact that, like, for the storyline purposes, what they were doing in terms of the pace changing depending who was in control makes absolute sense. So I can't say that if I was the agent in the room, I would have booked it any differently.
But I also think the periods where it was slow, there was enough kind of like, Benoit would try and get involved, or Malenko would try and get involved, or they'd cut some somebody would get cut off coming, trying to make a comeback, or there was enough of that it didn't kill the match for me personally.
Yeah. Do you know who was the biggest arsehole on the show, Lee? This fan on the hard camera.
Yes, that asshole. He seemed to be getting into it with every single wrestler on the show.
So he tried to start a fight with Chavo in the previous match, and Chavo kind of just no-sold him. And, like, people, like, were going, ho, 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 and patting him on the back for standing up to fucking Chavo, even though the dude was, like, 1.5 feet taller than Chavo. And there's this bit where, like, Wyndham is in control of the match, and, I'd have to blame him for part of why the crowd weren't into Wyndham, because, like, Wyndham is kind of doing the heat. He has the heat on, I can't remember what it was, I think it was Malenko. And fucking this guy just gets up and starts just roaring abuse at somebody. Like, I don't know whether it's one of the ring crew or it's Hennig on the apron or who the fuck he's going for. But, like, it's just like, fucking wrestling fans, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think most people listening to this show kind of know what I mean when I say that. Like, nothing makes me more embarrassed to be a wrestling fan sometimes than other wrestling fans who just, like, can't conduct themselves like actual human beings at shows. Like, it's okay to be super into it, and when there's times where the heel wants to antagonize you and they're hoping for a bit of you jawing with them back and forth, but, like, this stuff is like, it's the classic fans trying to get themselves over.
Just gonna say, there's moments where the fans' involvement elevates a show, or elevates a match.
Yeah.
And then there's moments where the fans' involvement just is like, you fucking dickheads.
Yeah. Like, if this fan is doing this, say when Goldberg's streak was broken, and you have a fan on the hard camera who's, like, dying to get over the railings and get at the heels, I think that adds to the heat. But, like, the way this guy was doing it and the times and the people he was picking to do it is like, this was just a guy who was just, like, he wasn't being part of the show. He was just being an asshole.
You remember it was one of the OTT Stadium shows.
Was this when Barry slapped Will Ospreay on his injured shoulder?
No.
Talk about fans getting themselves over. That Barry lad.
Barry should be running for president for that.
Yeah.
No, but do you remember, I think it was like 4 or 5 guys were, like, just super, like, Kings of the North fans. And they were just trying to roil everyone around them.
Particularly that one guy with the very shaved head who was doing the pose wrong, and it made it look like he was doing a Nazi salute.
Yes. That
and
time.
I don't know how accidental that was based on his style and appearance.
But those, I think it was one of them that got kicked out of, I want to say, like, 3 consecutive shows for inebriation.
Was that the same guy who got kicked out for being very racist to a fake luchador who has since been run out of the business, and rightfully so?
Possibly so.
Who is not actually...
Oh, that's right. I remember that, actually. Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah. Saying shouting racial slurs at somebody who is doing a lucha gimmick who was from the north of England.
Did you see Thunder Rosa?
Yeah, fair play to her.
Do you know what? Fucking hero. Absolute
Love
hero.
Love Thunder Rosa. Friend of the show, Thunder Rosa. A follower of Days of Thunder on the socials. But enough putting ourselves over like this fan was. To lead to the end of this match, Wyndham, he eventually taps out to the Cloverleaf, which means we go to match 2.
Do you know what? I loved the finish of the first fall. So Malenko goes for the Cloverleaf, locks it in, Hennig breaks it up. And instead of being a dumb wrestler, Malenko just goes, "Oh no, fuck this," and puts the Cloverleaf back on. Once Benoit has Hennig tied up, and he gets the insta tap. It's so brilliant.
It's like it was working. Why would I change my game plan here? Like, Wyndham is still prone. Yeah, makes absolute sense.
He doesn't like, I'll go up and do a frog spat. No, he just goes back to his move.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Yeah. So sometimes I hate this where there's like the proper match is the first fall and then just the second one ends within seconds. But maybe this is a controversial take, but I kind of like the way they did this in terms of there's one thing to be said for, giving the Horsemen the triumphant win, but if you're going to book it right, and I have no faith that they will, but I think, to me, there's more money in having the heels fucking cheat to win and then do the Horseman chase and give them their own defining moment. And that's what they did here. So Malenko goes for another cloverleaf during the 30-second rest period between falls, but Wyndham gets his belt off, chokes him. He gets lariated, which looked great, by the way.
So good. The left arm lariat always looks good.
Yeah, and then he gets choked more as he's kind of covering Malenko, and the ref counts 3. So it really took the wind out of the crowd's sail. They were like, fuck. But to me, I'm kind of like, this was great heat.
I agree with you. I thought it was one of those instances where this works because, like you said, the crowd are so into the Horsemen that, they're after getting the first fall and they're on top. And I love that the camera never leaves the ring. So after the first fall, Benoit and Malenko just continue to pound on Hennig while Wyndham sells. But all the time in the background, you can see Wyndham is taking off the belt.
Yeah.
So everything is right there in front of you. Mm-hmm. And I love that after he hits the lariat, he keeps choking him and he adjusts his body so that his body is covering the belt.
And again, in a company that books things sensibly, you can do things that, like, the Horsemen came in here with a game plan, but because Benoit's passion for getting revenge on Hennig distracted him, he could have saved his partner and seen what was coming if he had taken the rest during the rest period, but he couldn't
they couldn't get away from just beating on him.
Yeah, he let his emotions get the better of him, and that's what cost him in the end. So in the moment, I was like, fuck. But then, as I thought about it, and as I came on to do this podcast, I was like, no, I actually really like that finish.
I really like it. And, like, if you think back, it's like Hennig and Wyndham were the team that beat them, first of all. Yeah. They have that big babyface win on Thunder with the diving headbutt off the cage. Yeah. Super over.
Yeah.
Which
also probably should have telegraphed to us what was going to happen on this.
Yeah. They overcome Hennig and Wyndham in the first fall. They're on top. And then it's like, shit. But now you want to see them win. Now you want to see them triumph.
And dare I say, you might pay for a ticket to go see them finally triumph.
There you go.
Like, again, if I was in charge of this company, this is like, I would do this tag match in the Carolinas then.
Like 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'd go Horseman country. This is the main event of a Nitro.
Like, you know what you do? You go to Nitro the next night and you go, here are your new tag champs. And you have Benoit and Malenko come out and say, next week, we're challenging you, and you make it a cage match. And there's always that thing of, fuck, Benoit's going to do it again, isn't he?
Yeah.
And that's your build. That's your main event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then we get a US title video package, recapping the recent history of that, and then we go straight into our big Stips tag match: Elizabeth's hair versus Rey Mysterio Jr.'s mask, Conan and Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Kevin Nash and a mystery partner. The mystery partner, Lee, to the surprise of absolutely fucking no one, Scott Hall.
Scott Hall in his nice red pants.
But I just think it is classic WCW unannounced outsiders match.
Yeah, it's like
that would have done a few buys.
It's like, yes, Kevin Nash needs a tag partner. Who could it possibly be?
Yeah, it's so funny that, like, because they didn't even announce that. Like, if they had announced on Thunder that Lex couldn't compete, you could probably tease without saying that it was gonna be.
But like, even
it was going to be Hall.
Even Scott Hall doing double duty on a pay-per-view is a big selling point.
Yeah, it's gas. But it's just funny because, like, here you get the dark and the light of WCW. You come from a tag match where so much of the stuff going into it made absolute sense to a fucking unannounced outsiders match. Fuck it. Classic World Championship Wrestling here. What the fuck was with Lex Luger's get up here? He's in like a prison jumpsuit.
Dude, I want Lex Luger's fit.
Yeah, oh my god.
I want that. I would wear that every day.
He looks like he just broke off a fucking chain gang.
Well, it's not quite orange. It's kind of like a burnt red.
Yeah. It's not quite the Wolfpack colours, but it's not quite orange either. It's so weird.
He also has like the most oversized forearm cast. It's like ridiculous.
So Ray and Scott Hall start the match. A fun couple of minutes. Again, you want to talk about things that some people don't necessarily have to do. Like, it's funny because World Championship Wrestling show a disdain for Rey Mysterio's tradition and his mask with the way they book the finish in this. But at the same time, like, Hall and Nash, I've always thought, seem to show like a surprising amount of respect for Ray, because whenever Ray is in with them, like they give him more than they give most people.
Yeah, again, you're taking my big talking point away from me. It's
sorry, man.
No, like, look, I agree with you. Like we talked about how Hogan and Piper and Flair and are taking up the main events, and yet you have Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, the guys that are blamed with killing this company, rightly or wrongly, and here they are bumping for 5'4" Rey Mysterio
and making him look like $1 million. Like, Scott is flying around.
Scott Hall does so much to establish that, you know what, this dude is on our level.
Yeah. And do you know who I think the star of the match was Mike Tenay. Mike Tenay spends a good couple of minutes here basically talking about how, like, this guy is young, and yes, this guy has been in the cruiserweight division the entire time of his tenure, but let's not sell short how significant Rey Mysterio Jr. is. He didn't say to WCW, he said to the sport of professional wrestling. What a significant figure this is. And, like, that's, that's him talking to the proto-internet people there, because that's something that the people who are reading their torches and their observers and who are on the, like, their fucking AOL message boards, whatever, like, proto ones of them were in the day. That's what they knew. That's the truth they knew, like, how special this guy was. And Tenay is doing that call out to validate, like, this guy is a once-in-a-lifetime talent.
Like, you brought him up earlier on. I don't know if you've ever heard Alan talk about the first time he saw Rey Mysterio.
No.
Like, he's just, like, blown away. Joe Lanza says the same. The first time he got AAA tapes, or I think he said he watched When Worlds Collide, and he was like, dude, I need all the AAA tapes because I need to see this guy.
I think because he's been around almost our entire wrestling viewing lives, we do take him for granted.
Okay, you're old enough to remember.
Yeah.
Rey Mysterio disappeared when WCW ended.
Yeah. And it was the best decision he could have
ever made. Yeah. So he went back to Mexico one post WCW. I was a massive WWE fan, as I've talked about before. Dude, when his vignette started playing, like, there was nobody, absolutely nobody more over on that fucking roster than Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, I was a guy who was like, so I knew Ray from WCW, but it was mostly like, it was pretty much around this period, because as I was saying on our last show, I'm pretty sure I start watching WCW regularly very soon.
Yeah, around this time.
So even though pretty much the entire time I was actively watching him in WCW, he had no mask, I still knew how special he was. And during that interceding 2 years in between when WCW ends and he arrives, was it 2003 he arrives?
No, 2002.
2002. So
May or June
18
2002,
months.
yeah.
18 months or so then.
Because didn't Channel 5 or was it Bravo? Channel 5 that was showing WCW, that stopped sometime in 2000s, wasn't it?
So they were shown, it was on Cartoon Network.
Okay.
It was after Cartoon Network would turn to TNT, and they stopped. It was sometime in like the autumn of 2000,
yeah.
Because
but
I know it
wasn't worldwide on Channel 5. I know not everyone got it over here, but
yeah, I didn't get it. So like my watching ended. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I didn't see any WCW from the autumn until the fucking simulcast.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, yeah, I was a guy who, like, in that period where he was vanished, and like I wasn't online enough to be able to follow what he was doing in Mexico. This was where I had started making friends with people who had tapes, and I was seeing some of the stuff of Ray in WCW before he lost the mask, and some other stuff as well. And so, kind of like you, but with a bit more context, when those vignettes started airing, I was like, oh, fuck, here we go. And I was like, if you had known me at age 13 to, like, 15, 16, when it started kind of declining steadily, I was hardcore SmackDown guy. I fucking loved SmackDown so much. Like, I'd watch Raw, don't get me wrong, but again, like, Raw was the Triple H comes out and talks for 20 minutes with his stupid
Sets
feathered
up a tag
hair.
team main event,
Yeah. Stuff like that, and there would be individual guys like RVD or something like that, and Sean when he came back, where I'm like, I'm basically tuning into Raw to see how my 2 or 3 guys are doing, and other than that I don't care. Whereas SmackDown I'm like meticulously watching every second of and loving it. But yeah, I was so excited to see him back. He is so good. We get back to this match though, and Hall starts dominating, but he gets too cocky, and Ray is able to slip out of his grasp and make the big tag. And again, you know, we say it, Conan definitely at this stage, the body's already starting to break down. He goes into like, he lies very heavily on his shtick, and the bell to bell isn't there as much. But when this guy is a hot tag, there's almost no one like him in the company.
Man, like the pop that his hot tag gets, and he, do you know what? And again, credit to them, Hall and Nash bump like fucking motherfuckers for this guy.
Yeah,
they are.
And again, they're pals.
Yeah,
so you know what I mean.
You know, it's understand that's what they do. They bump for their friends, but
Yeah.
like they really are putting over Ray and Conan as a duo, and doing all they can.
As Conan goes to run the ropes, Nash clubs him from the apron to give advantage to the outsiders again. Conan is able to desperately fight out of the corner. Hall ducks a rolling lariat. They do a double clothesline spot. Ray is in. Drop kicks. Spin
There
kick.
you go. Like Kevin Nash and Scott Hall bumping off springboard drop kicks.
The height this motherfucker is getting on those drop kicks as well. Like, you think about how short Ray is versus how big Nash is, and he fucking gets
He
up
comes
there.
down on him, yeah.
Shades of Jackass's Dave England with that fucking Okada style drop kick. So spin kick to Ray. Oh my god. So like, first off, Ray hits a spin kick on Nash. He's able to get enough height to spin kick Nash in the head.
Yeah.
Then he uses Scott Hall as a launch pad for a drop kick, and then in a spot, I'll hand this over to you because you lost your fucking shit for this spot.
I love this spot. Like, yeah, he's just laid out Hall or Nash with the spin kick. Nash kind of recovers into the corner, and he nails him with the drop kick, and he falls into the corner, and Conan just gets into position perfectly. And he monkey flips Ray into a drop kick, like
into a shotgun drop kick.
A shotgun drop kick in the corner. Like it. Talking about it doesn't do it justice. It's such a fucking cool spot, and
the margin for error for it to not look like it had any impact is so narrow.
And you know what it is? It's in the context of the match because it's in that moment, and you're like, yes, fucking get these bastards. And it's just they're on such a hot streak. You're like, they're gonna do it. They're gonna win. Yeah,
and then Lex hooks Conan and takes him out. Ray KOs Nash with a moonsault, like deliberately gets him with the knees in the head. Like, and that, I'll tell you what, Nash sold it like a champ as well.
Again, what is like such a small thing. Like, and straight away the announcer's like, he hit him with his knee brace. He hit him like he's out cold.
Yeah,
they are on it like that.
Like for a second, you think it's they fucked it. It wasn't supposed to look like that. But then the commentators are very, no, this was like he hit him with a knee brace and that was calculated.
Like a moonsault press from 5'4" Rey Mysterio took out 7.
Point of the knee brace into the forehead.
Took out Kevin Nash and he sold it. And he stayed down.
Oh man, like were it not for the fact that you see him like in the next segment, I'd be like, that dude is still on the floor in Oakland today. That's how well he sold it.
And you know what? Ray's bump off the razor's edge. Just.
And that's it. Liz is up, and obviously this is one of those interference spots that, like, we hate interference spots, but again, one that makes sense every now and again is fine. Liz obviously has her hair on the line, and to this point had remained restrained, but when she sees Nash hit the deck, she's like, fuck. So she gets on the apron and she distracts the ref, and while that happens, Hall gets in the ring, hits the razor's edge, as you said, just a phenomenal bump from Ray, turns him inside out. Hall puts Nash's body on top and the outsiders win. And Conan and Ray are so bummed out.
Do you know what? It's such a small thing. And maybe it's just, again, me putting too much thought into it. but Ray is so close to the ropes that you're almost like, he's going to put a foot on the rope.
Yeah. It's just like really good, really heated match. Mostly very well thought out. And again, one of the better matches involving Kevin Nash we may have watched on this. Like, again, it's not something, again, that apart from Ray, that is in terms of work troubling a notebook level. But at the same time,
it's a hot match.
Everything looked good. You're talking like in the 3 to 3.5 range, probably. Everything looked good. Everything made sense, and that's as much as you could. That's really the ceiling for WCW.
And, and look, we hate the result. We're not. We're not.
No.
Saying the result was well done. Or like, look, we hate it. He should never have lost a mask.
Nope.
But credit to the Outsiders. They did their best to make these two look on their level, in spite of the loss.
Yeah. And they do their best to be absolute dickheads after the bell to make sure that they're booed and that people realise Ray is the babyface in this scenario. Because, like I said, Conan and Ray are super bummed out. They hesitate, but, he's a man of his word. He's a babyface. He undoes the mask and takes it off, and the Outsiders act like real dicks about it. They're dumbfounded and they say, put the mask back on. And the one thing which did give me a huge pop, because it was very funny, is there's one bit where the lads are walking out really sad and the fans are trying to console Ray, and then it cuts back and Nash is after putting on the mask, but because his head is so massive compared to Ray's, he can only get it down as far as his nose. So, like, his nose is sticking out the mouth hole, and like, it just, what a fucking absolute like doofus. Next match, we have the world television title on the line as Scott Steiner defends against DDP. And this is the first time I noticed that there's a lot of champions coming out first on this show, and I don't like that.
No, I don't.
So, at the moment, when he comes out, Scott is alone, and it's funny because, like, as much as when Scott comes out with Buff, you're like, oh, interference is coming. When Scott comes out alone, I was like, oh, interference is definitely coming.
Actually, do you know what? I just noticed the pattern. The baby faces come out last in every match.
Yeah.
I literally, as you said that, I was just looking through. I was like, hang on.
Yeah. To get the pop.
Yeah, the baby faces come out second in every single match.
So the pace of this show is so quick that, like, as Steiner is coming out, the Outsiders are still walking out, and they embrace and congratulate and encourage, and he keeps going. When he gets into the ring, he lifts a plant out of the crowd to join him in the ring. He says that when he's in... What?
Like an actual plant.
Yeah, like a Douglas fir, yeah. So he says when he's in town, all the hoochies come around. He calls the entire city of Oakland scumbags and says that he will take all of their women, whether they want him to or not.
I mean, look, some of what Scott Steiner says is true.
What's true about it?
I mean, I'll let the people decide.
Yeah. Look at this league turning heel on Oakland. I do like, he does a bait and switch here. He goes, look, this feud, it's not my fault. There's been a misunderstanding between me and Paige. And you think he's about to apologize, and he goes, it's not my fault that your wife is so into me, which is just like, that's just going to enrage Paige even more. And you want to talk about, like you mentioned, the entrance of the Horsemen and the intensity. Maybe the most intense entrance of the night is Paige. Yeah. Paige comes out. No taunt, no diamond cutter. The commentators even pointed out he is walking, making a beeline to the ring, and he has his eyes fixed on Steiner, and he is going to fuck this guy up.
There's no going through the crowd, it's just straight to the ring.
Almost quite literally fire in his eyes as he's coming to the ring. He gets into the ring and he's so intense that Steiner just bails immediatity. Like, Steiner wants none of this, and that's kind of a running trend throughout the match. Also, for the new people joining us with our move to VOW, this is the first defense of the Linear Martial Arts Championship. Now, I know we mentioned it in the listener feedback section of one of our previous shows. I think maybe our first show on VOW.
Possibly.
But around the start of Thunder, they were trying to get a martial arts division going, And then they pretty much forgot about it within 3 weeks. So we decided at that point we were going to start a linear martial arts division championship and keep track of it throughout. And again, friend of the show, Kim Geist, we retweeted about a month or two ago, did some fine work trying to figure out where the title is now in 2021-22. So far, just for those of you joining us for the first time, I'll read out the Roll of Honour so far. So from the inauguration of the belt to the 19th of April 1998, Prince Ikea, the flat pack sovereign himself, was our first linear martial arts division champion. Then from the 19th of April to the 17th of May, it was Chris Jericho. From the 17th of May to the 6th of July, Dean Malenko. From the 6th of July to the 13th of September, the longest run so far, it was Raven. 13th of September to the 19th of November, Perry Saturn. A nadir for the belt as from the 19th of November to Commissioner Malone's call on the 22nd of November 1998, the shortest reign so far for Wrath. And then from the 22nd of November to our present show, the champion is Scott Steiner.
Yeah, this is actually his first defense of the title since winning it.
Yeah, because he's only been, I think he was in one tag match maybe since that we've watched. Yeah. But anyway, Steiner gets in and Page just starts slugging at him. Steiner is trying to bail away again, but he eventually takes him down, amateur wrestling style. Eye poke from Steiner. I don't know about you, Lee. First couple of minutes, I was really into this. It felt like just a nasty brawl.
Yeah, this was just two dudes fighting, and it felt different than everything else on the show so far.
Do you know what it felt like? Is the Rick and Scott match from, was it Havoc, where the two of them were just fucking
tearing into each other,
slugging at each other, and I was like, I could have done with that for another 20 minutes.
I was in work today, and I was listening to our good friends over You've Got to Be Kidding Me, one of their shows from, I think it was November, and they were talking about Rick Steiner comes in for a battle royal, and it comes out in the sheets the next week that Rick Steiner wasn't very well liked backstage because he was just throwing fellas around in the battle royal with no care for how they landed. Yeah, and I was just,
you know what?
I was just like, you book Rick Steiner, this is what you're gonna get.
Again, this is it. That's what we love about him. you book Rick Steiner, you get Rick Steiner. And I think that kind of feel of an actual nasty fight and brawl proceeds throughout the whole match. I liked this a lot.
I did. I thought this was very good.
Outside, and Page is into the railing. Steiner on the apron. Page tries to claw him back outside with him, but Scott fends him off. He tries again. Page hangs him up on the ropes, gets back in. At this point, we realise Scott has been busted open hard way already. Yeah. Like, it's one of those, like, it's clearly not a blade job because it's one of those, like, it's not a clean cut. Like, it's like a chunk of his forehead is missing.
And it's not like gushing or anything. It's just kind of trickling out. It's like, it's a real cut. Yeah. So Buff then comes out to help him regroup, and I thought, oh fuck, I was really liking this, and now it's just going to be shenanigans. But you know what? I actually think Buff added to this match. I do. Yeah, I was just going to say that I really liked when Buff's addition to it all.
So he tries to give him a pep talk, but then they do the kind of surround the ring spot, and you think, oh, Page is fucked now. Page, as they're getting into the ring, the referee is threatening to throw out the match. Page shoves the ref out of the way and basically says, I'll fight fucking both of them. The two of them get in. He hits a pair of atomic drops, double clothesline the two of them. Like, Page looks $1 million in this moment here. He knocks Buff out off the apron, but Steiner then clotheslines him, should I say? Again, I've noted this match feels physical and it feels personal, and that's how it should feel based on this. Like, we do, again, much like we noted how little we liked some of the storyline with, Ray losing the mask in the previous match. We hate the Stalker Steiner angle because, again, Steiner's a guy who, as you said, like, maybe he's not as ready as Booker has been for as long as Booker has been, but this is a main event act and he should be just booked like a badass fucking killer, not like a stalker and a somebody who doesn't have a problem with violence against women.
But do you know what it is they need to do less of this stalking the women and more matches like this, because Scott Steiner comes across as a badass fucking killer in this match.
Terrifying. So Page is selling outside. Buff tries to manhandle him. Page hits him with a low blow. Steiner capitalizes on that distraction as Page gets back in. Buff taunting Page as he's getting beaten around. There's a great moment here where DDP, desperation, instinct, he's trying to fire up briefly, but Steiner says fuck you, belly to belly suplex, puts him down again. DDP tries to roll him up and pulls Scott's arse out. As Tony said, that's more of Scott Steiner than we ever needed to see. Good ground and pound from Scott here. Then Buff rolls a chair in, and again, this is a point where, like, you're watching this on a Thunder, this is where the match, like, I completely tune out. But I think they did some interesting stuff with this. So he rolls a chair into the ring, distracts the ref. Scott cracks Page in the back, and immediately I'm going, he's setting up the recliner. While the referee goes back then to Page and Scott, Buff gets the wire cutters out and the pliers out, and he's cutting the top pad off the turnbuckle, and then he goes to the middle pad. Robinson spots him when he's got most of the middle pad off and ejects Buff from the arena, which is great. Steiner is then arguing with the ref and decides to take a moment to hot dog and grandstand. And in what's a cool spot, like he's posing while he's standing on the ropes. Page recovers and clotheslines him in the back of the head, sends him arse over tea kettle to the outside, which is great. Crossbody to the outside from Page. Steiner reverses a whip and Page goes into the steps. He tries to use a chair on Page again. Robinson takes the chair off him, and that leads Steiner, who, again, this makes sense in terms of the angle because Steiner has a recent past with getting physical with referees. So when Steiner goes for Charles Robinson,
he runs.
Fucking referee books it, goes all the way around the ring, and he runs straight into a clothesline from Page. They go back in the ring. Page goes up on the top rope, gets crotched. Then we get a Frankensteiner, which was cool to see. Page kicks out, which was like, I wasn't necessarily expecting that. And this is the point where I thought, like, they've kind of stopped him building to the recliners. Like, are we going to see a rare breakout of the screwdriver? Because I was like, I don't want to see him try to do that to a man this big, but like, I'll pop for it. So Page then comes off the ropes and hits his float over DDT, which is referred to as the Diamond Dream on commentary. I will say, for such a lanky guy, Lee, Page hits a pretty good looking float over DDT.
Does, yeah. Much better than The Rock.
He's like, was it 6'5", 250
yeah,
he is, or something like that?
Guy, yeah.
Yeah, big guy. And I think you don't realise how big he is because he's often booked against, like, big dudes as well. Like, it's underrated because he's not as jacked to the fucking gills. Page goes for the cutter, and like, it's brilliant because they wait the exact amount of time where you've forgotten about the turnbuckle thing. So he goes for the clothesline, gets shoved into the exposed turnbuckle, and then Scott knows what's happened, follows him up, grabs him by the back of the head and slams his fucking face into it then again. That was awesome, looked brutal. He then takes off the middle turnbuckle and picks Page up in the running power slam position. Now 2 turnbuckles are exposed, so he just smashes his entire back into both of them. Again, obviously this makes sense, setting up for what he does then, which is he goes for the recliner. Page then is
he's fighting.
I love this finish.
He's fighting it so much.
He is fighting with every last fucking ounce of power through enormous pain. You can feel it. He's just desperate.
I loved, I think it was Shivani with the call. He was like, you know, when he's slamming him into the turnbuckle 2 or 3 times, Shivani's like, oh, DDP knows all about injured kidneys. And it's like, I don't know whether it was Tenay or Brian pipes up and it's like, oh, well, he definitely has them now. And it's like, that all plays into the finish. It's that reason he's desperately fighting the recliner.
In spite of all his efforts, though, he gets the hooks, he sinks it in, and to the bitter end, Page never gives up. He's defending his wife's honor. He passes out in the recliner. And again, one of those guys who, like, he doesn't just like he's taking a nap. He looks like he's been fucking choked out.
He got choked out.
Or passed out from the pain. Fucking brilliant. Very fun match. The trainer's out to attend to Page as Steiner leaves with his belt. And I think, again, had a bad night, but sprung absolutely into life here. Heenan he really did a stellar job putting over, like, Page is such a star, and he never gave up. Like, really hitting that point home. He did not give up, and he will never give up.
Yeah, I mean, this is just everything you want from a DDP character, where he just won't quit. And, like, to his last breath, he won't give up and won't say they've won.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? All things considered, this is a big win for Scott Steiner.
Yeah, it is. Like, he's still got that TV title. He's still a ways away from like being the main event player he already should be. But yeah, this is like, DDP ain't nobody
like
to beat.
DDP in 1998, he was facing Goldberg, he was facing Hogan.
And he beat Page about as clean as somebody with his character should be doing it. Yes, there was some assistance. And, you know, yes, there was the exposed turnbuckle and stuff like that, you know, for the heat. But at the end of the day, it's he
won.
Put in his hold and he passed out, you know. So next up, we've got the United States heavyweight title match. Roddy Piper defending against Scott Hall, who's here with the Disco Inferno. Nelly, I don't know about you, I don't have a huge amount to say about this match.
I mean, Roddy Piper shouldn't be on pay-per-view in 1999.
No. And it's funny because, like, Scott, you know, had his selling boots on for the first match, and maybe the reason he took so long to come out for the second match was because he took those selling boots off and had no intention making Piper look a quarter as good as Rey Mysterio.
Do you know what? I think this is all on Piper, because Piper won't sell a single thing that Hall tries in the first couple of minutes. This match, like, Hall is throwing punches, he's trying everything. Like, Piper just won't sell.
And Piper keeps, like, Hall is trying to do stuff, and Piper keeps going back to his amateur boxing, and clearly it's a thing where he wants that being got over, because commentary are doing the same couple of lines every time he does it, like, oh, you know, he was an amateur boxer and shit like this. So this is obviously a thing that, no, I'm getting my shit in, sort of thing.
It's a bad match.
Yeah, look, you know, we've said it before, like, whatever about his promos, I think, you know, there are people, like, he's an incredibly charismatic guy. I kind of like some of his promos, but I think now, like, looking back on some of his promos, I'm like, really, they were very, like, I don't think if he came around now and cut the exact same promos that people would have been as into him, because he kind of just talks a load of fucking nonsense. But, like, has a revered place in the industry as a big star because he was charismatic, got huge reactions. He definitely was a star.
True money.
Yeah, but I don't think anybody here is going to stand here and argue with me that he was not a great professional wrestler.
No, he wasn't.
In the bell-to-bell sense. He was a great act, but as a wrestler, I think even in his pomp, we weren't to be expecting anything stellar here. And yeah, this was like, you know, I have some play-by-play stuff written down, but I really don't feel like getting into it, because this felt like you probably saw these guys work most of this match if you'd seen them on, like, a WWF house show years before. Yeah. It's like a weird match, and there's, like, weird standoff at the end, and it's all just, it shouldn't be on. Do you know, it's sandwiched between two incredibly physical matches between big dudes, like big meaty men slapping meat, and it just feels like fucking 80s WWF.
It's just so out of place on this pay-per-view.
And like you said, you know what, I will give Hall the benefit of the doubt and say that it was like Piper dragging him to a Piper match rather than Hall dragging the match down. And you know what, like, again, I can't blame Hall too much for once, because I'm saying, like, if you come in this guy and this guy isn't willing to do your stuff with you, then fuck him.
Yeah, like, look at the difference with Scott Hall against Rey Mysterio and Scott Hall against Roddy Piper. It's two different people.
Yeah. So Nash comes out, attacks Piper, Hall rolls him up, Hall wins the US title. And then Hall does the thing where he won't give up the belt. He gives up the belt, but then Hall tries to attack him. He ducks. So Piper is still kind of standing tall.
Yeah, Piper has to stand tall at the end.
Yeah, there's a bit where, like, the you know, the three guys, the outsiders and Disco, try to surround him and beat him down, but he bails out because he's smarter than them at the end of the day.
He also says something weird into the mic that I didn't understand.
What did he say? I
have no idea. I couldn't make it out. I went back 3 times and I couldn't make it out.
Just Piper babbling. Next up, we have a match. I'll tell you what, I enjoyed the shit out of this. It wasn't the match it could have been if they did it at the right time in the right building.
Again, you're taking my words out of my mouth. Like, they had lightning in a bottle with this match, and this was good. It just wasn't. It could have been more.
They had already gotten to the point where nobody bought Bam Bam was going to beat him, so the crowd wasn't as hot for this. They were hot for Goldberg hitting his moves, and I think the match was very well put together. But yeah, like you said, it's just missing that little bit to put it over the top. I wrote down, I want a big old stiff match here, and that is what I got. Testing each other early till there's this bit where Bam Bam comes off the ropes and he goes to do his running crossbody, and Goldberg caught him like he was fucking nothing.
Oh man, that spot! Like you should say, Goldberg or Bam Bam had ran over Goldberg in the previous kind of spot. He'd ran over him with a shoulder block, and Goldberg just sprung to his feet. And by the time Goldberg had got to his feet, Bam Bam was off and running, going for the crossbody. And he just catches him, and the crowd, my God, the crowd are just like, like, you'd swear it was fucking One Man Gang, Andre the Giant, Big John Studd, all combined into one.
And you know what's really cool about these early couple of exchanges? We didn't mention it, but earlier in the show, I had mentioned the internet location earlier with the two guys, but there's an internet location interview very briefly between Mark Madden and Bam Bam. And guys, mark it in the history books. You will not very often hear me put over Mark Madden, but this was a really good interview where like Bam Bam is just like supremely confident, and he's just like, I know I'm the guy. I know I can beat him. And everything I've done since I got here is to get that fucker in the ring, and now I have him.
Yeah, he's like, this was my plan all along. I wanted him in a big time spot.
Yeah.
And Mark is like, oh, you think you can throw him around? He's like, I know I can throw him around.
Yeah. He's like, what is it? The bigger, he goes, I know what they say, because he's like, do you think that maybe because you're not as quick and strong as him that you'll fail? And he goes, you know what they say? They do say that the bigger you are, the harder your fall. But Mark, the smaller you are, the further you fly. And Mark Madden is fucking disgusted at the audacity. Yeah. You think you can pick up Goldberg and throw him?
Yeah.
He goes, I know I can.
Yeah, that's such a great line.
It's like, I don't know Bam Bam as like this, he's not an elite tier promo guy, but like this little snippet of him, this was good.
But you know what it also is? It's like he does that kind of sit back in the chair. He's like, I know I can.
Yeah. And again, do this angle 2 months ago, and this is a fucking hot pay-per-view.
Just don't bring him in until post Starrcade.
Or but do all the same spots you did, like the early stuff, like when he shows up or when he comes out. Like you don't have to do it in World War III, but if you come out in a big match where he just like takes the advantage and just beats the shit out of Goldberg, and they have pull apart brawls and shit like that, and then do interviews like this, fucking yes mate. Anyway, Goldberg, he picks him up, gets him in the fireman carry into a cross arm breaker. Like he drops him, maintains wrist control, lost it for that. Cross arm breaker attempt. Goldberg clotheslines the big man to the outside. Then this is where Bam Bam's gameplay comes in, where Bam Bam sees his opportunity, drags Goldberg's legs under the ropes so that they're hanging off the apron, and then goes to town on the legs because he's like, this fucker is strong, but he's not strong enough to lift me if he has no leg. So that's his strategy.
And I tell you what, I was not expecting this to be a leg match, but you know what? It worked.
And do you know what as well? Another thing that if you're a long-term viewer of WCW makes sense, because the only times that Goldberg has gone deep in matches is when people target his legs to take away his, like, the power he's got. Because obviously, if you're thinking, oh God, if only you had somebody like a Taz, somebody who's obsessed with breaking down the bodily mechanics of a move, and you point out that like for that power behind his spear, you need like the lift off strength in the thighs. And if you've taken one of his legs away from him, is the spear going to hit as hard? Can he get the jackhammer? If they had put that over a little bit more, juiced that a little bit more in commentary, again, that might have been one of the little things the match was missing. Because Tony, again, completely whiffs on the leg thing for the first few seconds. He thinks he's low blowing him, even though that's not actually the point of what he's doing. So Goldberg is now hurt, and Bam Bam is slowly wearing him down, and he's feeling his oats. You can see it in his face. Every time Goldberg fires up, again, sensibly put together match. When Goldberg fires up, it visibly hurts him more. Mm-hmm. So like he might get a big power move, but then he's favoring the leg after it. Big diving headbutt from Bam Bam for 2. He goes to pose for the spear. People start losing it, and then again, Bam Bam
he just rolls
wrestling
out.
IQ,
just rolls out.
Just casually. It's fine. Can't spear me from inside the ring when I'm outside the ring, mate. He can't hold it off for long though, as he gets back in, and Goldberg nails
what
him
a fucking spear
with a spear.
And you know what? It caught the crowd off guard, because when he was in the corner, lining it up, they're all up. So when they come back in and they do the kind of, he ducks the clothesline and he just nails the spear. Yeah. They're all caught off guard, and they're just like, and I loved this. He picks him up for the jackhammer and goes, oh no, he's not ready. Fucking super kick to the chest, another spear, and then the jackhammer.
And do you know what's great about that? It works in 2 ways for me. And again, this might be another case of, like you were saying with one of your bits of analysis earlier on, maybe it's me reading too much into giving them too much credit. But this works for me in 2 ways. One, because Bam Bam has been a thorn in his side for like 3 or 4 months now. He's like, no, fuck you. I am beating you.
You're getting ultra killed, yeah.
Yeah. But also, it works for me in the second way, where I'm like, this is almost a show of respect that he's just not going to be put down like any random guy Goldberg wrestles on Thunder. It's not 1 spear or 1 jackhammer. It's 2 spears, a standing sidekick, and a jackhammer. And Goldberg then, as well, to his credit, once he wins after the jackhammer, he's really selling it like he's been in a fucking war. Like the leg is still at him. He's not as delighted and so like that as he normally would be when he has a big win. And the commentary is really putting over like Bam Bam was prepared, and on another night it could have been him.
Do you know what? I love this match. I thought Bam Bam did fucking great work selling for Goldberg. He really, like, it felt like a clash of the Titans, and the 2 of them did great. I thought Goldberg selling the leg, like you said, at the end, it felt like he was after being in a battle for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
And it did feel like one of those things that, like, you know what? The commentators really sold it as, he lost to Starrcade, but this guy is unbeatable. And I have to give them credit, because they keep hammering that Goldberg may have lost, but he wasn't beaten.
Yeah, there was a bit where, like, so Heenan said, I think it's Heenan says he's unbeatable, and Tony does a, well, he has lost, and Heenan is like, he's unbeatable unless you've got a fucking stun gun, basically, is what he says.
Like, they were really putting it over that, he lost, and he lost the title, but nobody's beating this man. Nobody can say, I beat Goldberg.
Do you know, we've been too glowing, so I guess maybe, like, I'll do devil's advocate here, and I'll say, well, it's what they have to do now to salvage it, because they beat him. Do you know what I mean? Like, there is that as well. So we can't be all full of praise like this was the divine plan.
If the plan was to go to fucking Bash at the Beach, or even, I don't think they could have got it to Starrcade. I think it would have had to be the middle of the year. Maybe Fall Brawl, they could have got it. But if the plan all along was to go back to Hogan versus Goldberg on pay-per-view for the first time, Goldberg going over again, it would have worked.
Yeah.
If every month was like this. So Goldberg overcomes Bam Bam. He overcomes somebody else next month. He overcomes Luger the following month. He overcomes somebody else. Then he overcomes Nash. If they did it month by month and built and built and built.
And do you know, it's another running theme on the podcast that we have unveiled as we're going down Thunder Road. And it's that even after some of the big goofs, you know, them fucking it up with Sting, them beating Goldberg, in 1999, in the early part of it anyway, there is still avenues they could have taken. There's a
chance for them to come to salvage it.
Yeah, I think there is, you know, we've said it before, there is a narrative that says after 1998, that was it. It was irreversible. Yeah. But there are still these moments and people they could have gone with. Again, we've talked about that one. We've also talked about if you had gone with Booker, not saying Booker could have saved the business by himself, but if you had, like you said, cycled out some of those old dudes, cycled in, created stars in Steiner and in Booker, and a couple of others. And then, you know, for all his many faults, and by the time he's there, it's firmly a sinking ship. If you had established all these new stars and then into the mix you add new top heel Jeff Jarrett, and you know, a couple of other people are coming in, and he's not coming into a company that has hired Vince Russo and is dying. You know, there's...
Like, here's the thing. Bret Hart is in this company a year. He's never been a main eventer. Yeah. Dude, right there.
Yeah. You know, and whatever, but like Jericho's ship is firmly sailed at this point, but you can definitely still do something with like a Benoit. You can still do something. Like, you know, we could list them all. DDP obviously can be. We've seen with his match at Halloween Havoc with Goldberg. You can take less than 6 weeks and have everybody think that Paige has a really good chance of being a world champion. But anyway, look, you know, we're treading on well-worn ground at this stage. So let's move on. Speaking of well-worn ground, Michael Buffer is here, and Lee's new mortal enemy, a man in the crowd who shouted "Michael Buffer rules," and I just visualized your face when that man said that into the camera, and it was a picture, let me tell you.
I mean, was that man Michael Buffer's son?
It may have been. I mean, it was maybe our second plant of the night. This one might have been like a spruce or something like that.
I did notice that...
His spruce buffer.
I did notice on Buffer's long introduction that his facial expression never changes.
Payback, you took my first point from me.
So unemotive.
I wrote, man is a fucking robot.
No, are you ready? And it's just like,
Oakland, California, are you ready?
You fucking smile or do something?
Yeah, look like you care about being there at all, you fuck. So, in the entrances, great contrast between the two. Hogan, all bravado, all trash talk, all smoke and mirrors, pomp and circumstance, everything. He's the king of the fucking world. Ric Flair comes out, and again, this is a horseman theme on the show. You talked about it during the tag match, I'll talk about it here. Flair comes out, and he's a man who indulges in his bravado, let me tell you, but tonight he is staring a hole in Hogan his whole walk to the ring. And you know
what's a great contrast to all that? While he's staring a hole in Hogan, all behind him, there is the most elegant and, you know, biggest pyro display of the night going on behind him.
Yeah.
And it just
and he doesn't even react to it.
No, never once breaks a stride.
And they get in the ring, and it's great because I really wish this was a running theme for the match, and I think it was something Flair was definitely trying to do. So it's obviously part of like Hogan's mind games is to do all the bravado and shit like that. And the camera cuts to them when they're in the opposite corners of the ring before the bell rings. And Hogan is trash talking and he's burying Flair and talking about his son and shit like that. And then the camera just cuts to Flair, not moving, just looking across the ring of Hogan. There's like, I wouldn't say a smile, but there's the hint of, I've got you now.
You're here now, and I have you.
I am going to embarrass you.
It's the cat that caught the mouse, isn't it?
Yeah. It was great. Supreme focus on his face. Just really, really good. Like, they call him maybe the greatest of all time for a reason.
And you know what, Tony, again, I said I didn't notice many, but there's a couple of times the commentators are on point, and Tony Schiavone makes a great point. He said this all started when Ric Flair informed Hogan that he had to defend the belt of SuperBrawl. And it was only
Yeah.
after Hogan and the NWO attacked Flair and his son that Flair said, you know what, I'm facing you at SuperBrawl.
Yeah. Hogan's hubris is what led him to being stuck in this situation and nothing else. So there's brawling a lot again because, you know, I think they do a brief lockup, but then it just like it immediately devolves into just a fight, and that's what it should be. Suplex on the outside from Hogan. Flair is just opened up very quickly in this match because it's Ric Flair in a main event. He's going to bleed like a stuck pig.
I think Bobby makes a good point around that point. He points out that, you know what, I hate Hulk Hogan. I've hated Hulk Hogan for a long time.
Yeah, he's like, I hate Hulk Hogan. I hate his family. I hate his friends.
But he says,
like,
you know what, when it's all on the line and it's a big time match, he always delivers.
Yeah, and Flair does a great job of, you know, everybody knows, whether you're an inside fan or not, that Flair is a wrestler, and Hogan is like a powerful, big fucking dude. So, like, it would make sense that Flair, as the smaller man, as the more technical wrestler, is struggling to not get overwhelmed by the power of Hogan, because maybe that's like one of the things that, like, in kayfabe, like, because I give a fuck about watching Hulk Hogan matches, one of like the kayfabe reasons him being a heel is such a like source of frustration for maybe some of the less inside fans is that, like, this dude can win world titles by himself. He doesn't need to fucking take shortcuts. He doesn't need his mates to bail him out. It's like he can mostly do it himself. So like that works for me. So yeah, Flair is fighting to stay in it here in the early going because, and again, another thing is like Flair probably supremely confident knows that if he can bring Hogan into the deep waters in this match, that's where he gets the advantage. So Hogan takes off the weight belt and he just whips this man like crazy.
I saw the belt coming out. I was like, fucking couple of belt shots. I mean, Hogan is swinging that fucking belt. He is swinging and he has no regard for where it's hitting.
And you know, I get that, like, the ref nearly gets a belt a couple of times from both of them in this, but you know, Flair specifically told him,
just fucking lay it in.
Just go for it.
Because
it's
you know what?
good.
He's going to get it back. Because I love Hogan fucking whips him and lashes. He hits him in the fucking forehead at one point.
Yeah, and he wraps the belt up and punches him
with the buckle. And then he puts the belt back on and I'm like, smart. He doesn't want to let Flair get that belt after this. No, Flair just takes the fucking belt.
Takes the belt off him and again whoops him like crazy. And all of a sudden, Bobby Heenan is having the best night of his life. He came to life during this match. And yet now both men are bleeding. Hogan does a blade job, and then we get to the shenanigans portion. So the woman we know as Tori,
Samantha,
comes out in her red dress.
I mean, you have to call her Samantha. That's her name.
No, I can't not. Like, I can't. No. Anyway, Flair like kind of thrusts at her, which is super creepy. She paintbrushes him, slaps him in the face. Hogan tries to take advantage. He fails. Tony is just perplexed by this whole situation. Like, what the fuck is she doing here? What's going on? You know, it's like he didn't see the million segments that were going on, and he has to be reminded by Tenay that you know, this is the woman we've seen. She's coming to the pay-per-view. Flair beats Hogan around the place, goes for a pin. Hogan powers him off onto the ref. So, ref bump spot.
I love that Hogan then just drops an elbow on the ref.
Just because he's a cunt. Like, just because he's a cunt, he just drops the elbow on the already unconscious referee. Hogan hits the big boot, the slam, his leg drop misses. Then we get the masked Wolfpack goon emerging, and I immediately was roaring laughing. It could not have been more obvious whose fucking gormless I'm about to cry face it was coming out. Like, my giddy aunt, what a fucking... You want to talk about, like, a guy who has not just no presence in a professional wrestling context, but negative presence. Has anybody coming out in a balaclava and leather jacket look less intimidating in the history of balaclavas or leather jackets than David
First
Flair?
of all, that wasn't his leather jacket because it didn't like, I know 1999 clothes were baggy, but no way was that his leather jacket.
It's probably fucking Goldberg's. Like, he loves a Harley jacket. He's fucking swimming in it. It's like when you're a toddler and you wear your dad's suit jacket and it's just fucking like you drown in it.
Do you remember Michael in Arrested Development? Michael goes to the country club to try to impress
to see Sally Sitwell.
to see Sally Sitwell. He's like, I can't wear this, and it's like fucking swimming on him.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's Michael in the country.
But secondly, has there been a wrestler involved in a big time main event pay-per-view with less charisma than David Flair?
Look, we talked about it a little bit on the tag team match, and again, I feel like I'm going to hit the Brian Alvarez high spot here, where I say I'm sure he's a nice guy, but Jesus, I fucking hate David Flair as a wrestling entity, and I resent the hell out of the fact that pretty much for the whole rest of the run in this company, I have to endure this fucker. And it gets even worse for me when he becomes part of an act that the other 2/3 of I really enjoy, when he starts teaming up with Daphne and Crowbar.
I mean, you want to talk about facial expressions never changing on Buffer. David Flair has to be told to open his jacket so they can see the NWO logo.
Yeah.
He's a fucking...
Again,
the guy shouldn't have been on TV.
Constantly looks like he's about to cry. He almost has the the frozen Homer Simpson face from Rock Bottom. It's like Mr. Simpson, no! It's like it just doesn't move. It is like the VHS has gotten stuck, and it's just like, fuck's oh my god! Like, there has, like the history of the industry is rife with second generation wrestlers who did not live up to the potential. And obviously Flair is, I think for most people,
responsible for two of them.
He's easily in objectively across people's opinions over time. He is probably in most top fives, if not top threes, of the greatest North American worker of all time. So they are big boots to fill anyway, and I do have some level of sympathy for that. That being said, has there ever been a larger gulf between the talent of father and son in wrestling? Like, Jesus H. fuck mothering Christ. He is like, I just can't believe it. I can't believe it. And I spent the whole end of this match, the whole finish with him coming out, stun gunning Tori.
No, stun gunning Rick in between the shoulders.
Rick while he's in the figure four, even though you might ask yourself, because Hogan is touching him while the electric current is passing through him, why would it not shock both of them? But let's move on from that anyway. But it was just the most because it was David, it was the most farcical, not over thing on the, all it was missing, somebody, do you know what somebody needs to do? And this feels like something that Aaron Quinn would do, is get that bit of video and just put in JR's son of a bitch when he takes off. That's all it was missing. Because that was and it's such an anticlimax that not only did we know who it was with the benefit of hindsight, so it's not just that we were reading into it and because we knew who was in the mask we could tell. He's not even in the ring yet and you just hear one fan just go, "What are you doing, David?"
It's because his little shoulders walk, and it's it's so obvious. Yeah.
Me dad brought me to work. I'm Mr. Manager.
Oh, what's the
most gormless fucking Egypt that's ever been in a pay-per-view.
What's the kid in BoJack Horseman? Vince Adultman? What's a...
Oh, something like that, yeah.
Oh, God.
Something like that.
That's what it reminds me of. It's just I'm here with all the adults and I'm a big boy now. It's...
I was just in tears. Like, this is a blood feud that comes to an end, and you should have the shocking twist of son turning on father. But I was just in hysterics laughing for the end of this because it was so
It's
bad.
so like, anticlimactic.
They so didn't get the reaction they thought they were going to out of this. And, like, you know, I can't, like, Rick obviously wants the best for his son, but Tony
Schiavone doing the, it's David Flair.
Yeah. Tori and the Masked Man then embrace.
The Masked Man.
He reveals it's David Flair. I, for one, was stunned. He's red and black. He stuns Rick again. Nash comes out to celebrate, and that's all she wrote for the pay-per-view. So, like, it was, you know, the main event was a match that, like, I think it had a nice heated couple of minutes, but then as soon as Tori comes out, fucking fell off a cliff through no fault of her own. It was all fucking the anticlimax of David Flair that did it. Especially because, like, they had, I think it was earlier in the night on commentary, they had said something like, don't forget, like, when a mystery person shows up, you know, it often shocks the wrestling world. And they were talking about the tag match when they did that. But WCW has that history. Like, if it's going to be a mystery man, it's going to be something absolutely shocking. But just a wet fart. Just a wet fart. Like, absolute. It was. Do you know what? Like, related. It was the main event equivalent of somebody, you know, trying to sneak out a fart and accidentally shitting themselves. Just that kind of, like, I have disgraced myself through this experience. And that is, once I was done laughing, I was like, I spent 3 hours watching World Championship Wrestling, and this is, you know, first and last impressions are absolute killers in professional wrestling. And a pay-per-view that we put over so strong going off the air with this angle, you're going to have people forgetting most of the previous 3 hours and just being like, oh, for fuck's sake.
And do you know what? I think that's the big problem with the company going forward.
Yep. And as well, now what what somebody who's a bit more tuned in is thinking is like, well, the only thing that would have kept me sane during David Flair matches is that he would probably be tagging with his father, but no more. No more. He's now out on his own. They could have been a early version of Ray and Dominic. Instead, they're an early version of Ray and Dominic. Yeah. Good Lord. Anyway, Lee, overall thoughts on the pay-per-view, trying not to let that moment cloud your judgment, and your winners and losers.
I thought this was a really good pay-per-view, all in all. Like, even up until Samantha Tori shows up in the main event, I actually enjoyed the main event for what it was. Like we said, the show was structured so well. Every match was in the right position on the card. It was built,
mostly booked very well.
Like I said, I just noticed that as we were recording, going, my God, every babyface came out second to get the pop. Yeah. It's like little things like that make a difference.
You've only two booking decisions I strenuously disagree with. One, the David Flair, and two, I would never have Ray lose his mask. Mm-hmm. But having only two booking decisions I absolutely hate on a 3-hour pay-per-view for WCW, that's an accomplishment, average, isn't it?
It just happens that they're two of the biggest things on the show.
Unfortunately.
Hopefully we see less of Roddy Piper going forward. I mean, look, we know what's to come. So you kind of have to enjoy these moments while we have them.
Yeah.
Booker and Disco really over-delivered. I thought Scott Hall had I'm going to ignore the Piper match. I thought Scott Hall had a good night. He'd be one of my big winners coming out US champ. Hopefully he'll be a bit more focused in the next couple of months. Mm-hmm. The tag belts are now, important. They've really been raised after tonight.
They at least aren't in witness protection anymore.
Their importance has really been elevated, I think.
Yeah. Now, I don't think they remain important, if I remember rightly.
No, probably not.
At least, they've given it a go.
Losers, Roddy Piper. Dude should not be on television, never mind pay-per-view. Other than,
Will I give you some? You mentioned hopefully we won't have to see too much of Piper anymore. Will I give you some good news on that front? Unless he shows up on one of our Nights of Nitro shows, we only have to endure 3 more Roddy Piper matches the entire rest of the podcast.
Oh, very nice. That's something to look forward to.
And they're all 19.99 pay-per-views. Okay. So, and actually one of them is only just over 5 minutes anyway. So
that's bearable.
Yes. We just have to remind ourselves of that constantly. Your finish counter, brought to you by Ludwig Borga. 10 matches on this show, if you count the 2 tag team matches. 4 clean finishes, 1 DQ/count out, 3 interference leading to a finish, and 2 miscellaneous shenanigans. Yeah, good pay-per-view. Better than we were probably bracing ourselves for in 1999, so I don't have too much, those 2 exceptions being said, to complain about. I'm happy enough. Thanks everybody for listening to another episode of Days of Thunder. We'll be back in 2 weeks with our latest TRL episode. Stick to the Discord channel and to our Twitter for when we say the week before what that show is going to be, if you want to watch it in advance. But I suppose we will maybe tease just that it's something we've talked about doing an episode on before.
Yeah,
I believe on the show. That's something we'll say. So this is for a couple of people. This will be a long-awaited Days of Thunder TRL. So we look forward to watching it. Hopefully you look forward to listening to it. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, thank you. Be safe. And we'll see you then. Thanks everyone for listening to another episode of Days of Thunder. Days of Thunder was produced by Lee Malone and edited by me, Dave Ryan. To keep up to date with the show and find all the ways to listen to us, you can follow us on Twitter at WCW ThunderPod or click the Linktree link in our Twitter bio or in the show notes. I am at The Day to Dave on Twitter and Lee is at Malone_713. Days of Thunder is a part of the Voices of Wrestling podcast network. Follow the VOW network anywhere good podcasts are sold for more fine podcasts than you can shake a stick at. Thanks.
I can hear the thunder.